Hi Abba Mama, it's Troy at Banana English. Today, we are going to be talking about moods in English and how to interpret them. Mood doesn't always mean feelings. Grammatical mood refers to the quality or form of a verb in a sentence. It denotes the tone of a verb in a sentence, so the intention of the writer or speaker is clear. There are three basic verb moods: imperative, indicative, and subjunctive. Take a closer look at each verb form with these explanations and examples of grammatical moods in English. Indicative mood. A sentence with an indicative mood expresses a factual statement, at least from the perspective of the speaker. Most sentences are written in the indicative mood, sharing facts or details that we perceive to be correct. In these sentences, the verb will express some sort of action as a statement of fact. Here are some examples of the indicative mood. Marie laughs whenever she sees him. Their new puppy walks quickly. Charlie read that book in less than a day. He enjoyed his dinner. She travels to Ireland frequently. Imperative mood. A sentence with an imperative mood makes a request or a command. These sentences don't make mild suggestions. Rather, they issue a direct command, telling someone what to do. In these sentences, the verb will express a direct call to action. Sometimes, the subject, you, will be understood, as in the first example. Other times, it'll be clear who the subject is. Here are some examples of the imperative mood. You move that book. Make sure Irene calls the store tomorrow. When you get home from school, walk the dog. At 5 o'clock, peel the potatoes for dinner. When you arrive at the airport, walk to gate 52. Subjunctive mood. A sentence with a subjunctive mood expresses a condition that is doubtful, hypothetical, wishful, or not factual. The subjunctive verb in these sentences will show action, but it may not be based on reality. Sentences in the subjunctive mood often include the phrase, if I were. The verb tends to express a doubt, wish, request, demand, proposal, or hypothetical situation. Here are some examples of the subjective mood. If I were in your position, I'd never leave. Jane wishes her sons were faster at getting ready in the morning. The teacher requires all students be present for Thursday's event. Dr. Chandy suggested that Jerry run 3 times a week. She demanded Sean work the night shift. Other verb moods. Although indicative, imperative, and subjective moods are the main verb moods, there are several more you may encounter in English. Some reference guides would include conditional mood and interrogative mood as well as the 3 main moods. Conditional mood. A sentence with a conditional mood contains an auxiliary verb, a helping verb, and a main verb. You'll be able to spot the conditional mood if you see the auxiliary verbs would or should. Sentences in the conditional mood explain that one action is dependent on another. Another telltale sign of the conditional mood is the if this, then that construct. If then clearly indicates one action is dependent upon another. For example, if she wasn't so mean, then he would have helped her. Here are a few more examples of the conditional mood. We would live in Ireland if we secured the proper documents. If he wasn't so late, then he would have had time for an afternoon snack. Knowing his history of bad behavior, she should have said no. After we go for a run, I would like some tea. If I lived in Ireland, then I would write a book. Interrogative mood. A sentence with an interrogative mood asks a question. This may make you think of interrogative sentences, which also ask a question. When dealing with the interrogative mood, there will typically be 2 verbs. One will be an auxiliary verb. Again, you can think of an auxiliary verb as a helping verb to the main verb. It provides further clarification for the main verb of the sentence. Common auxiliary verbs include are, be, do, and have. In sentences with an interrogative mood, The auxiliary verb often comes before the subject of the sentence, and a question mark ends it for proper punctuation. Here are some examples of the interrogative mood. Are you coming to the mall? When is your mother-in-law leaving? Where does he work? Did you bake a pie for Thanksgiving? Where have the students gone? While grammatical mood does not refer to emotion or feelings, it does convey a certain tone with the mood of the verb in a sentence, indicating a fact, a command, a question, a condition, or a wish. If I was or if I were. Appropriate use. Why do you say if I were when you would never say I were? And why is it more correct than if I was in some cases? Keep reading to learn when if I were is appropriate and how to tell if you're using it correctly in the conditional or subjunctive moods. Many people use if I was and if I were interchangeably to describe a hypothetical situation. The confusion occurs because when writing in the past tense, I was is correct, while I were is incorrect. However, when writing about non-realistic or hypothetical situations, if I were is the only correct choice. Even though they look almost identical, if I was and if I were are not interchangeable. The way you use them depends on the mood of your sentence. If I were is appropriate in the subjunctive mood, while if I was is only acceptable in conditional past tense sentences. Let's look further into how to use the conditional if I were versus if I was correctly in a sentence. When to use if I was. You can use if I was in past tense, first-person sentences that describe something the speaker was or has done. The conditional conjunction if indicates that one action in the sentence depends on another. For example, I apologize if I was rude. I'll let you know if I was accepted into the graduate program. The teacher will increase my grade if I was correct on the first question. I'll fix the error if I was mistaken. The phrase if I was always comes before an adjective phrase that further describes the speaker. The word was indicates that the situation is likely and realistic. None of these sentences would be correct with if I were. When to use if I were. If you're trying to describe a hypothetical or doubtful situation, also known as the subjunctive mood, use if I were. Unlike sentences with if I was, these are cases that are contrary to current fact. Some if I were examples include, I bet Henrietta would go out with me if I were taller. I would focus on foreign policy if I were the president. If I were a millionaire, I'd never work again. I'd vote for the senator if I were sure that he wouldn't raise taxes. If I were more like my sister, I'd have won that scholarship for sure. These sentences are in both conditional, one action relies on another, and subjunctive, the if I were clause is contrary to fact. You could follow each statement with, but I'm not. This is the easiest way to tell whether you're using if I were correctly. More about grammatical moods. Mood in writing isn't just how the author wants you to feel. A sentence's mood indicates the writer's tone and how they want the reader to receive the message. There are several different grammatical moods that range from factual statements to commands. Indicative, a straightforward statement. I am going to the dance. Imperative, a command. Go to the dance. Interrogative, a question. Are you going to the dance? Conditional, a statement in which one action depends on another event. I would go to the dance if Brian asked me. Subjunctive, a hypothetical statement. If I were you, I'd go to the dance. Each of these types of sentence sends a different message to the listener or reader. Sometimes, punctuation helps to set the mood, as does syntax. But in cases like the subjunctive or conditional moods, you need to know what verb conjugations and contractions to use. Conditional and subjunctive moods. It can be hard to tell the conditional mood and subjunctive mood apart. They both describe situations that may or may not happen. But when you use if I were in a sentence, you're writing in both the conditional and subjunctive moods. Sentences in the conditional mood include words like would, could, and should. Take a look at this example of a sentence in the conditional mood. I would buy that car if I could afford it. The speaker is saying that one action, buying a car, depends on another action, affording it. The word would indicates that the sentence is in the conditional mood. But if you change if I was to if I were, the sentence becomes subjunctive. I would buy that car if I were richer. In this case, the conditional action, buying a car, depends on a wishful situation, being richer. The fact that the second clause is unlikely or hypothetical makes the sentence both subjunctive and conditional. Here are some more sentences that become both conditional and subjunctive with if I were. Armin would fall in love with me if I were more beautiful. If I were single, I'd still live downtown. I would tell you if I were going to the party. If I were trapped on a deserted island, I'd bring matches and bottled water. Let's practice. 1. It is essential that she at the meeting. The answer is B. It is essential that she be at the meeting. 2. If I would call her tonight. The answer is were. If I were you, I would call her tonight. 3. It is necessary that every student a uniform. The answer is wear. It is necessary that every student wear a uniform. 4. I hope that his homework on time. The answer is finishes. I hope that he finishes his homework on time. 5. The doctors recommended that she a holiday. The answer is take. The doctors recommended that she take a holiday. 6. The boss asks that you early for your first day of work. The answer is B. The boss asks that you be early for your first day of work. 7. If he feeling better, we would go. The answer is were. If he were feeling better, we would go. 8. It is important that we home as soon as we arrive. The answer is call. It is important that we call home as soon as we arrive. 9. The landlord requested that John out of the apartment. The answer is move. The landlord requested that John move out of the apartment. 10. We want the windows washed before Friday. The answer is to be. We want the windows to be washed before Friday. This is all for today. We hope you had a great time learning something today. Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn English grammar the easiest way, take Teacher Banana's Hell's English Grammar lesson at www.artieandbanana.com. We will see you next time.
Artie and Banana, their show.